Welcome to The Real Pro-Choice, where you will hear stories of miraculous healings and restoration. What my next guest endured through her childhood left her broken and beyond repair until God intervened and turned her life around.
The choices we make affect our lives. Sometimes our choices not only affect our own lives, but everyone connected to us. Maybe even those we're not aware of. God says, choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. Join Donna Grisham and her guests as they share the choices they've made and how Jesus has set them free. Next on The Real Pro-Choice.
Welcome to today's show. I am super excited to have Yvonne Hicks with us today. Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's great to be here. I really appreciate all that you're doing in this hour. It's so important.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, Yvonne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm currently a business process consultant. I work on a contract basis, but my main thing is that I'm an intercessor. I'm a prayer warrior. I have operate two ministries. One is Releasing Heaven Ministries, and the other one, Yvonne Denise Ministries, to just impact for awakening and impact the next generation, women, that type of thing.
Okay. Well, I want us to go back into your childhood. Could you give us a little background story of your childhood?
Yeah, so I grew up in Philadelphia in the 60s. It was a turbulent time, civil rights movement was going on. I remember when I was 2, like my dad was seriously ill. And when I was 4, my first memory was actually a fight that my parents had. My dad was literally choking my mom. My mom was screaming to call the police, and we had to go through that trauma. So we had to go through that trauma, and I found out years later, after watching the movie Concussion, that that's what was wrong with my dad. He was seriously ill and then had all of these rages. And so if you remember the movie Concussion and saw the little kids around holding on to their mom, that's part of my childhood.
Okay. Well, you were, before the age of 10 years old, you were sexually assaulted twice.
Yeah.
You had 2 sexual assaults. What did this do to you, and how did you cope?
Yeah, parts of a childhood were really normal, playing stickball, doing mud pies, that type of thing. But because of the trouble at home, I kind of was marked in the neighborhood. So a neighborhood boy, I did something wrong, threatened that he would tell my dad, and so he pulled me aside into the back alley and sexually assaulted me. I think I was 6 or 7. And then because of the turbulent times, because it was the civil rights movement times, there was an assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., riots and so forth. And so my dad, trying to protect us, but again, not communicative and things like that, he suddenly moved us. So he sent us to Baltimore without my mom. Mm-hmm. And so while we were there for a couple weeks, I happened to have an encounter with an older cousin, mm-hmm. and he sexually assaulted me. And so very difficult times. I found out later, by the time I was a teenager, I was just very angry. It led to a very fragmented life. I love school, so I kind of focused on that, but I really didn't engage or interact. I could be in a room with a crowd of people and I would be in my own little world.
Right.
So it was very difficult times, and a lot that I had to ask the Lord to help me remember some good times. It was that fragmented.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you're 17 and you're at an Ivy League college. Tell me the story of what happened.
Yeah. So it happened that because of my fragmentation, I being angry, I said I was going to worship the Lord my own way. I would do my own thing. And so when I went to college, I stayed on campus, even though it was local, and I within months, I was partying, I was drinking, I was having sex, that type of thing. And so before I turned 18, I found out that I was pregnant. I kind of knew the moment that I became pregnant. I went to student health, got the tests and so forth, got it confirmed, and the words that my mother sent me off to college was don't come home pregnant because your father won't like it. And I went into a full-blown panic at that point. And so student health recommended, having a procedure as an option, and gave me a list of clinics. And so there we go.
When you say procedure, so did they use the word procedure?
I can't quite remember. I remember having a brochure. I remember it being very sterile, very matter of fact, that type of thing. They gave me a list of information. This is what will happen afterwards. Just the physical discomfort. Make sure you travel with a friend. Pick your own clinic. That type of thing. No counseling or anything like that.
Okay. You mentioned it to me about when the suction was turned on.
Yes.
What took place in your mind when that happened? What was?
So I was there at the clinic in a waiting room. They call you back, strap you in and so forth, and start the suction. I knew the moment that happened that I had actually killed my baby, and I was horrified. I was even more distressed and panicked after that. And I remember afterwards, it was right around the summertime. I kind of hung out with friends that summer, but I was very depressed, very anxious, very troubled. By the time I went back to school in the fall, I missed a lot of classes. I was in full-blown depression. My heart was racing. I went to go get that checked, and they were saying, well, maybe you should leave school. And I was like, no, this is my parents' dream. I can't just leave school. And so just a lot of stress. I missed a lot of classes, and just was really, really troubled as a young woman.
So I want to go back to when you found out you were pregnant. And your mother basically don't come home pregnant. So in your mind, you were like stressing on, okay, I've got to do something. There has to be something done. I can't go back pregnant. So it wasn't the thought of, oh, well, have the baby, or was it? I didn't consider that an option. I would see other friends who would go through similar situations and kept their baby, and that would even stress me out more. But the way life was like at home with my dad, my mother threatening your father won't like it meant more trauma, more, I didn't think that I could come home. You just had, your thought was, I've got to get rid of it.
I've got to
It's got to go away. Somehow this has got to go away.
Absolutely.
So that's your thought.
That was my thought, and a horrific choice that I made at that point. Again, knowing that I committed what I felt was the worst sin. An innocent baby, right? Killed my baby.
Yeah. Well, Yvonne, we're going to talk about, some visions that the Lord has given you. And this is concerning your little girl, your baby. So when we return, we're going to talk about that. We'll be right back, and Yvonne's going to just share a little bit more of her story.
God values all life, even from conception. Donna Grisham and the vision of her ministry, Journeys of Choice, is to empower women through counseling, parenting classes, and by providing alternate options to choose life for themselves and their unborn child. With prayer and dependence on God, Journeys of Choice is committed to saving the lives of unborn children, while at the same time offering courage, assistance, and healing. For more information, visit journeysofchoice.org.
Welcome back. I'm here with Yvonne Hicks, and we're hearing a little bit about her story. Yvonne, you were sharing the last segment, you were sharing with us about your abortion experience and what happened, trauma of it. Can you just elaborate just a little bit more of what your emotional state, what you went through?
Yeah. So I can say that there was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I remember not knowing what to do. I would, run into people that knew that I had that, and my head would immediately go down. I still had a difficult time concentrating in school. But I still partied, I still did the drugs, and then even was stupid enough to still have sex with someone, but more protected, that type of thing. I just withdrew even more. I just stopped really engaging with people. I lost hope.
Do you feel like that part of that was, to escape?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
If you
blank it out.
To blank it out, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Blank it out. Yeah. And again, just the shame. And again, other friends had gone through pregnancies and they kept their baby. And again, that more shame.
So what did that do?
Guilt.
When you would see?
I was so proud of them, to be able to do that. But I knew that I wouldn't have that, that I wouldn't have a relationship with a vibrant, I believe, the Lord showed me it was a girl, a vibrant daughter that I could raise and I could nurture, that type of thing. So it just a lot of stress. I kind of checked out a little bit, even more.
Yeah. That's a good word, checked out.
Yeah.
Because I did that.
Yeah.
Checked out.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back also to your parents.
Yeah.
Not just your parents were really excited about you being in an Ivy League college.
Yes.
You wanted, and you wanted to do whatever you could to please them.
Yeah.
You want, to go through college and good, I'm sure, make good grades and just, do what, most parents want, their children to do, become whatever. Yeah. I don't know if you're a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, but sometimes parents just, they want to live their dreams.
Yes.
Through their children.
And it was exactly that. My mother wasn't able to go to college. She was very smart. She was a valedictorian of her class. And so she also wanted us to have an independent life, to be able to make it on our own type thing. She didn't grow up with her father, so I always asked her, why did you stay? Like we could make it. And I didn't really know economics. We didn't talk about money.
Right.
But her thought was that if they have education, if my children have an education, they'll have a better life, and they'll be able to succeed and kind of live the dream that she wanted. And so that's kind of why I was like, I cannot leave school. This is my mother's dream.
So you felt the pressure.
Lots of pressure. Lots of pressure.
So
yeah.
And that pressure, the inward turmoil, that pressure, caused you to, sometimes we make choices, from the pressures of life.
Yeah.
And we make choices that, we regret. I always say, we can regret the choices of our past.
Yeah.
But we don't have to live in that regret.
Right.
And that's one thing that I see, that you're not living in the regret of your past.
Right.
You made a choice. You made a wrong choice, but you're not living there.
Yeah.
And there's something that happened that the Lord, to bring you to a place of some healing and some transformation, restoration in your life. Tell us that story about the vision of your little girl.
Yes. So that's definitely a fast forward. The Lord wooed me to Him, and so I developed, got saved. I got filled with Holy Spirit, and so It was probably about 10 or 11 years afterwards. I was finally in a good church and so forth, and but having some trouble at the time. And I was like, Lord, how can I fulfill the things that you've called me to do? And because I've got this shame, this guilt. And so I was resting one day at home, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw a person walk in to the room in the spirit, holding the hand of a little girl. And when they walked towards me, I couldn't see the face of the angel. I know that had come, but my daughter said, "Mommy, I forgive you." And so that broke something in me, and I later wondered, was that real? Was that real? And I started hearing other women's testimonies. Yeah. And I remember when I heard your testimony, and you were like, you heard that or saw, and Mommy, I forgive you.
The Lord took
took you to heaven, right? And so
said they forgive me.
Yeah, and so tremendous, and so the Lord's love for us, even in this, He has a purpose, a plan for our lives that hasn't changed. He told me that He had me in my family to redeem my bloodline. So like today is sharing my parents' story, my story that will be able to heal generations, and even particularly the women that have gone through this, knowing that how much the Lord loves you and has a plan and a purpose and a destiny for it, has not changed His mind, even knew ahead of time and made a way for us to break through.
Healing.
Powerful, powerful. We serve a mighty God. He's pre-appointed our times and our boundaries so that we will know Him even through all of the trials and the hurt and the pain. He's that big of a God. He is that great. Yeah. He is that mighty. Yes. He is a redeemer and a healer, and He loves us so much. So, yeah.
Well, Yvonne, when you said that that you had that vision and it broke something off of you, that you feel that at that moment that shame that you were carrying, that shame was just lifted off of you, that He removed that shame that you carried for years.
It was a major healing, a major breakthrough. But at the same time, I remember that my parents were prodigals. They grew up in the church and made a mistake. And we would go out and witness to people. And that was kind of why I was just stressed. We would witness to people. They would break, they would receive salvation, but they wouldn't come into the church. And so being a part of the church, I believe a part of today is to let the church know you have to embrace people who have gone through trials. There are more people out in the streets that know more scripture, but haven't been able to be restored back into a church community. Right. And so that's really important. And the Lord's taken me on a journey to do that, to be able to more freely share a testimony. Right. And
the power of the testimony is that He'll do it again.
Yes.
What He's done for you, He's done it for others.
Yeah.
So, Yvonne, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go into the ministry part, and we're going to allow you to minister to the audience. We'll be right back, and Yvonne and I are going to minister to you. Welcome back. I'm here with Yvonne Hicks, and we're talking about her story, and we're in the part where God brings healing to her. Yvonne, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the last segment, you told a story about being able to, the Lord gave you a vision of an angel that, brought your daughter, and she said she forgives you.
Yes.
And just what that did to you, it brought healing to your heart and to your life. I do have one question. Your relationship with your parents.
Yeah.
Did your mother and them know that you had an abortion, and did God bring any kind of healing? Was there any healing between mother and you?
Yes, I had gone through like a church program, if you will, a ministry program, and it talked about having holes in your umbrellas and how we needed to make sure that we went back and shored up different areas. So I had a conversation with both of my parents, and I went through as much as I could. I told them about the sexual assaults that I'd gone through. I told them that I had an abortion. We did a lot of snotting and crying.
I'm sure.
And the great thing is that my dad still suffered with the effects of the concussion, but later in life, he actually kind of got dementia and everything like that. And so I was able to minister to him, you know, because we would have conversations along the way, and he would get angry, you know, and I'm like, my mother would get upset, and I was like, we're not arguing. He's mad, I'm not, right? And so I was able to lead him to the Lord. And so it's so powerful and so healing and amazing. And my mother and I, we had a very good relationship. I talked to her daily. They're both home with the Lord now. Was able to make sure that I will see them both again. And I believe they're taking care of my little girl. Yeah, and she's no longer a little girl, but yeah.
I believe my mother's up there taking care of my little children, my son and my daughter. So,
yeah.
So I want to shift into the ministry part of the show. You know, there's so many out there that have been through, you know, similar stories as you. I mean, but they don't know that they're like stuck. They feel like they can't move forward.
Yeah.
They're trying to, you know, do things themselves. They're trying to, the forgiveness, they don't think the person that maybe raped them, maybe molested them, they are struggling to forgive.
Yeah.
They're struggling to forgive themselves. They're stuck at a place, and and God wants to bring breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know, God wants to bring breakthrough to your life, and He wants to just break through where you're at. He wants to wherever you're at and whatever you're going through, whatever past trauma you've been through, you know, He wants to go back there and He wants to wash that place and wash it clean. Now, Yvonne, tell me something that you would, if the Holy Spirit speaks to you.
Yeah.
Is the Holy Spirit saying anything to you concerning anyone, a word of knowledge, anything that to minister to the audience?
So there was a time I was ministering that's come back to my mind in terms of recognizing that Jesus dealt with sex trafficking. He dealt with sexual sin. He dealt with the woman caught in adultery. He dealt with the woman at the well. And He is full of love and full of life and full of redemption. And so every place that He did, He said simply, go and sin no more, and received Mary Magdalene as a daughter, a full daughter, one who was a sent one, would go and send messages and so forth. So the Lord has not changed His mind about your life. He is not, He has a plan and a purpose. I asked the Lord, why my family? Why did He pick my family? Why did He pick the time? And it was to, again, redeem my bloodline. So God has not changed His mind. He knew you before He even put you in your mother's womb. And so He has a future and a hope for you. He is a planner. Yeah. His power, one of the things that I struggled with is like, God, where's your power that will break that? You transform my life. Right. Where's that power? And so I want to encourage women and men who have gone through, you can rely on Holy Spirit. You can get strength from the Spirit of the Lord to break through. I would have situations or circumstances where I was like, God, I'm not feeling that. I see your word. I should walk in forgiveness in this, but I'm not feeling that. But nevertheless, I will release that, and you have to help me with all the emotional. And He would do it every time.
You know, Yvonne, you mentioned, you know, you said, God, why my family?
Yeah.
Why? You
Yeah.
know, a lot of women, a lot of men out there, they say, why me?
Yeah.
Why me? You
Yeah.
know, why did I have to go through this? What does, you know, God wants, you know, us to know that, you know, there's bad things that happen in the world.
Yeah.
We live in a fallen world.
Yeah.
We're not, you know, we don't live in a clean world that's all, you know, full of angels and all. We live in a fallen world. There's demonic entities. There's, you know, so we battle not against flesh and blood.
Yeah.
We battle against principalities.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know, the why of things, I think, you know, the Lord's began to show me that, you know, it's not so much why, because I used to say, well, if you knew about this, why couldn't you that not have happened?
Right.
You know, I didn't, you could have stopped that.
Yeah.
God, you could, I remember I would go through night after night sometimes thinking, well, if he's such a good God, why couldn't he stop this?
Yeah, where were you, Lord?
Yeah, where were you?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
couldn't you
I've
stop
done
this?
that.
You're a big
Yep.
God. You could have stopped it.
Yeah.
See, he gives man will.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't, he's such, you know, God's such a gentleman.
Yeah.
He doesn't force himself in. He doesn't break through and make, you know, things happen for us. But we come to a place where we realize, you know, I realized that I couldn't change my past. I couldn't change the things that happened to me, but I could change how I viewed it and how I, you know, allowed God to use my past for now, for others, to bring healing to others.
Yeah.
Is there any way that our audience can reach you?
Absolutely. You can reach me at Yvonne Denise Ministries. There's a way to send a contact or a little message, and those come directly to me, and I'll be happy to respond.
Okay, thank you so much for being
most
with
welcome.
us. Thank you for joining us today. Visit my website, journeysofchoice.org. I would love to hear from you. See you next week on The Real Pro-Choice.
You need to pray, go to your God, ask your God what you ought to do, because you're the one that's going to be accountable for whatever you do. And if your God says it's all right, then you do that. Because they don't even understand it in Orthodox Judaism. The child is not a child until they're born, until they are birthed. There are other traditions that honor life in different ways. And you, with your male self, want to dictate to a woman what she can do with her own body? That's the start of a deep and vicious slope that will dictate to all of us.
I've sat with a father and a daughter who've had to make very tough decisions.
Right.
And as we counsel them, as we share with them, as we pray with them, as pastors, as was already said, that ultimate decision is left with that family. So the issue is not necessarily how you feel about the issue. The issue is whether or not government has a right to tell a family what to do in that situation. If the church doesn't have that right, then why should the government? And so I think we really have to be careful that we don't miss the fact that in many cases the white evangelical church has become almost another political party.
Well, the reason why I wanted
in the chants,
abortion is my right.
On the signs, a resounding rejection of the Supreme Court ruling from the streets of New York.
I wasn't planning on doing this today. I got all my work stuff, but I'm so angry. The Supreme Court is illegitimate!
Hundreds marched in Manhattan, stopping traffic during rush hour. Everyone in the crowd standing up for abortion rights, some with very personal reasons for showing up.
And I know that this will affect working class black women and people more than anybody else.
We've got to show up.
This man joined his wife and daughters.
This is absolutely a human rights issue, and we need more men to show up. Everybody's got to be here. This is our issue.
This rally in Denver.
Hands off our bodies!
This one in Louisville, just a few of many demonstrations happening across the U.S., with more planned over the weekend.
What you have done and what you have prayed for is to make death for women easier because you don't allow them access to good medical care.
In Georgia, where new abortion restrictions will soon take effect, some celebrated the ruling.
Well, I just think personally that nobody should have an abortion. And that's all I'm going to say.
With this decision,
Abortion rights advocates are now pleading for support.
these barriers will only be more widespread and felt, especially by those who can't afford or do not have the ability to cross state lines.
We need more progress and more protections for providers who will be caring for this dramatic increase in patients in Illinois in our new post-Roe reality.
Who will legalize?
Prominent women's rights lawyer Gloria Allred urged women not to lose hope.
This is a war on women and girls. We must not underestimate the impact of this. Our daughters' lives are at risk, and we have to fight back.
My body, my business!
A message clearly received at this rally and others across the country.
Chris, you've spoken to a lot of people today, and what's standing out to you about what you're hearing?
Ian, I saw a lot of parents here with their kids, and their message is that this fight is about the future generation. The other thing that you sense is that the emotion here is visceral. They're not just angry, they're disgusted, and that emotion is being matched with action. A lot of sharing of resources here for abortion services, and there's also a sense that they are in this fight for the long haul, that this is a protest, not just for tonight.
Thanks,
Ian?
Chris.
And when we disorder our rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and some people's liberty goes before someone else's life, or someone's pursuit of happiness goes before someone else's liberty, bad, terrible things happen that result in slavery, subjugation, and death.
So if I came up with my own religion, that is satanic, I was satanic, I believe, and I am.
That's right.
I'm a practicing pagan.
Yep.
I believe that I can do whatever I want, and I have the right to an abortion in my religion, and it's completely
So in many states that have restrictive laws against abortion, the Temple of Satan is officially suing and asking for injunction, stating that laws that prevent abortion prohibit Satanists from practicing their religion, and meaning that because they believe a woman should be able to sacrifice a child to abortion as part of the religious practice. So do you agree with the Church of Satan?
I believe that, yeah, Church of Satan should be able to do whatever they want. It's a religion, religious freedom. I mean, I believe we're in a free country. I believe in religious freedom.
Well, I mean, hey, you're the one who just had to agree to agree with the Church of Satan.
I
So
mean, I believe we're in a free country, and we're in America. God bless America. We're in a free country. We should all be.
God bless. I think you're a pagan.
I'm just saying what you guys would say. God bless America, right?
Well, isn't God
You're
bless
Christian. I'm
America?
putting myself in your position. God is the main religion in America, correct? Correct.
Well, that
Christianity.
God isn't religion.
Christianity is the main practicing religion in the United States, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I am saying, in my opinion, and I feel like, I mean, it's a free country that we should be able to choose whether or not we agree with abortion and not abortion. Otherwise, it is not a free country. And I feel like that's very understandable. I mean, if we're
I think it's very understandable to say that we in our free country, there are limits to our freedoms. There are limits to all of our freedoms.
Of course, yeah.
There's always limits to our freedom. There's no absolute right to bodily
100%.
autonomy, right? Would you agree with me with
yes,
that?
I do agree.
Yeah, so there are limits to our freedoms, and one of those limits should be killing innocent other human beings. And we, as Americans who agree to live in this society, uniformly say we can't go around killing innocent others. That is bad. Regardless of what our religious beliefs are, that's one of the fundamental, that's like natural law principles of our society.
I mean, I'm just going with free country. I feel like we all should have our choices.
Yeah, but it's not a free country to choose to end the life of an innocent other human being.
But it is. I mean, we all should get our own choices. You're not an embryo. You're not an embryo.
That is,
you're a living human being, and so is the embryo. Yeah, it's alive. I don't care. It's not. I don't want it there. I am not ready to financially support a baby. I personally don't think that I would go through with abortion. I personally just don't think I would. My mom has. My family has. My mom is a conservative Christian Catholic woman, and she 100%.
I'm sorry you lost your sibling.
I don't care. I don't care. My mom would not have been able to mentally and financially support that kid, and she didn't have people around her to help her with adoption. She didn't have those resources, and I'm happy that she did that, and I don't care that I lost a sibling. I have 3 others. I have 3 other beautiful, gorgeous siblings, and I support my mom completely in that, and I just believe that for religious sakes, let's go back to my main point. I'll end it here, but for religious sakes, I feel like since we can practice religious freely, I feel like it should be allowed that abortion should be a choice determining on your religious freedom.
So you believe your religion tells you that you can subjugate other human beings and end their life?
Religious or not.
Is that what your religion tells you?
I believe any religion that I can make my own religion.
And so your made-up religion tells you that you can do that.
What does your religion tell you differently? That if I just made another religion
I'm saying
and wrote my own
this
Bible,
isn't a religious argument. This is a natural law argument that there's
but it is a
certain
religious
law.
argument because you brought up the Bible and you brought up.
No, you all brought up the Bible.
You
guys are the ones
you brought up
quoting the Old Testament to me.
You brought it up like previously though, and you came in.
No, I didn't bring up the Bible. I didn't bring up the Bible at all in my talk.
But you also admitted.
I'm a Catholic. I'm really bad at quoting scripture.
You also admitted during your speech that Christianity plays a big part in your ideals of abortion.
I did not admit that in my speech.
Yes, I have it on video.
I have it on tape. I did not admit.
I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't.
I did not say that Christianity plays a big part. I said in the Q&A that my belief in God. I give this speech a lot. I think I would know. I don't actually bring up my religion on purpose in presentations because people feel like I always do, but I don't. I find it hilarious that people feel like I do simply because I call myself a Christian.
It's only white people equating slavery to owning an abortion. Not once have I heard one black or woman of color.
Faith, do you want to come up here? Because apparently color matters.
I would like to hear from a woman of color why that isn't racist.
Come up here. Why are you pro-life, Faith?
I am pro-life because life begins in the womb at conception. Our personhood, our rights should not be based on having to be human plus something else. That's exactly what happened with slavery, where we were told that you have to be human plus not black. And now we're saying that you have to be human plus a certain age, or human and in a different location. And so really what abortion is age-based discrimination.
Black people weren't seen as humans. They weren't seen as human beings.
As a black woman and as a person who got my degree in biology, life does begin at conception.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
I can be down the hall and deliver a live baby, be involved with labor and delivery, and it's good old Dr. Robinson, happy and encouraging her to push. Yeah, the baby's almost here. And here's the baby, cut the umbilical cord, and everybody's happy. And walk a few feet down the hall, and I kill the baby. Same person, same doctor, but I don't believe they're really the same person spiritually. The enemy has the capability of manifesting himself in you appropriately. And again, I take responsibility for that, but you're actually able to flip a switch almost instantaneously from healer to killer.
And so now every time I join meetings, I'm like, oh, there's some flaws. Yeah, you already know. I'm like, yeah, I have like a leg for you. I'm like, oh shit. If other people were to hear me, they'd be like, you're a f***ing She wanted footprints. And I had a resident with me that day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this procedure because I'm going to try to do my best to get these feet out and track.
Right.
We did footprints and handprints, baby. We had 17-week twins in the freezer. Because we were waiting for funeral home to pick them up.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, I'm sorry, you can't see them. They were like the most intact because it was a fetal anomaly. The conjoined twins. Oh. I was like, I'm sorry, we put formalin in there. so it's all like dark white. Yeah, it's not clear. It's not like something you can see. And he goes, oh, but I was like, but it's really cool though. There's like 3 legs and like 2 spinal cords. And,
I'd be down to see that. That would be pretty cool.
I might ask for a second set of forceps. Pull the body at the cervix and pull off the leg.
Oh, so you gotta, okay.
So it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
See,
There's some that are like, I need you to make one more pass. Like avoid PBA. Trust me, because like I would never would have had a conversation with you if I wasn't already like fairly confident that it was going to be,
yeah.
You know, that are making
Right.
8th and 9th month, and even after birth, calling those specifically executions. We've covered this claim before, but killing a baby after birth is called infanticide. Infanticide is illegal in all 50 states. There is not one state where you can kill a baby after it's born. There are states that do allow late-term abortions in the 7th, 8th, and 9th months, but not after birth. Again, that would be infanticide.
7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last, no politician should be making that decision.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die.
Along the same lines, you stated that a baby born on a table as a result of a botched abortion, that decision should be left to the doctor and the family. Is that what you're saying?
It should. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That decision should be between the patient and the healthcare provider.
Go ahead, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that at that point, the patient would be the child struggling on a table. Wouldn't you agree?
You're recognized.
That's a very good question. I really don't know how to answer that. I think, I would be glad to have some more, conversations with you about this.
What objection could you possibly have to obligate a doctor to transport a child born alive to a hospital where it seems to me they would be most likely to be able to survive?
And I'm just speaking out here. What about the situations where it's in a rural healthcare setting? The hospital is 45 minutes, an hour away. That's the closest trauma center, emergency room. There's just some logistical issues involved that we've got some concerns about.
On March 25th, 2022, a pro-life group received a box containing bodies of 115 children from a worker that was taking it from Washington Surgery Center to be incinerated at a renewable waste facility. Inside the box, along with 110 early-term babies, were 5 full-term babies. I encourage all of you to look at these photos because some of these babies were born alive. The 5 babies are Christopher, a full-term baby boy whose body was almost fully intact; Harriet, a baby who was born with one eye open; Phoenix, a baby that was born in caul, meaning an amniotic sac. Some of my colleagues on this committee say that they care about the safety of children, yet they have failed to turn a blind eye to this awful situation because it does not fit their narrative. And I encourage all of you again to continue, because I see people not looking at these photos, to look at these photos, because this is horrific, and this is known as late-term abortion.
Human cause. We are always the problem. The human person is always live baby being delivered after an abortion that was crying in the bucket that I caught it in.
How did you try to kill it?
I covered it with a towel so it wouldn't cry, so the mother would not hear it cry. However, being a good doctor, it was moving. It was moving.
Was the mother unconscious?
No. The mother was there, caught it in a bucket. It was squeaking and making noise. It was 23 weeks. It had to be close to what I thought was a pound. Reached in around my towel, trying to suffocate this child. I picked it up by its head and it felt heavy. So I put it on the scales, and that's when it showed 505 grams.
So you didn't just, forgive me, you didn't just let it die. You tried actively to suffocate it at that point, which is no different to killing it within the womb, of course. So I suppose it shouldn't shock me, but
Look
it does.
No, this is the whole idea. When they say, when the world says, when a live product of an abortion, they're talking
mother effers.
They are truly MFers, buddy. The whole system is rigged to abort the pregnancy, to decrease fertility. Climate change, too many people, human cause.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
So give them credit for solicitude. Look, the policies, maybe not.
I just had this thing in Minnesota. There were 8 deaths among infants who survived abortion attempts during Tim Walz's tenure as governor. It happened. They don't want to talk about the fact that it happened, but there were children.
What's the source?
First of all, let me ask you a question. Since you've deeply researched this, what were the condition of these babies when they were born? What was the participation of the family?
They tried to abort the babies, and they survived the abortion, and then they died.
And you think that families casually tossed them aside?
No, I think.
Tell me what their condition was. Could they have survived? And was it a case of families not wanting children to suffer when they were told that they are doomed?
Yeah. Twisting the head off the neck, kind of with his own bare hands.
And you saw that happen?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So he would twist the head.
Sometimes he would go through the stomach as well.
Sometimes he would do what?
He would force it through the stomach.
The instrument, is it beards?
And twist it.
Yeah.
And you saw that?
Anything that he could get to the fastest. Like she said, the umbilical, he was probably perforating the umbilical cord. I normally saw either the snipping of the spine or the introduction of the instrument in the soft spot of the fetus, normally, or twisting of the neck.
I remember he would put his finger.
Yeah, or his finger. He'd take his finger and then
through the throat.
Yeah, and it was a botched abortion. The fetus was still alive. He thought it was dead, and the fetus opened his eyes and actually grabbed his finger. Was able to grab his finger.
No hospital, no one will take a baby at 9 months for an abortion.
Interesting. Just back up. Is it a baby, Whoopi? When does it become a baby? Suddenly now it's a baby at 9 months. That's actually factually inaccurate. There are late-term abortionists. Google Dr. Hearn, who was featured recently in The Atlantic as the abortion absolutist, and actually talked about committing abortions into the 9th month of pregnancy. So while it is rare, and there's not a lot of abortionists who will kill babies in the 9th month of pregnancy, to say no one is just factually inaccurate. And by the way, if no one would do it, then why are Democrats against passing any law that would restrict late-term abortions? Why can't Democrats name one abortion they don't like and say, we're against this? Why can't they do that?
What I have in my hand here is a Tic Tac. At 6 weeks, a human fetus is about half the size of this Tic Tac, 4 millimeters high. 4 millimeters. It does not have a face, so there's no looking at a face in an ultrasound. And there is no heart, there is no lungs, there is no brain. It doesn't have toes. It looks more like a tadpole. What you detect with the ultrasound machine is the electrical activity of the cells that will become the sinoatrial node that's pumping each of our hearts right now, hopefully, unless you all have a pacemaker. But that little clump of cells is actually detected by the ultrasound machine, and then it creates the sound. Just like our veins and arteries don't go whoosh, whoosh, that's created by the machine.
Blind abortion. So picture yourself introducing this and grabbing anything you can blindly and pull, and I do mean hard, and out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you. Reach in again, pull out an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you. And use this instrument again and again to tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart and lungs. Head in the baby that size is about the size of a large plum. Can't see it, but you pretty good idea you've got it if you've got your instrument around something and your fingers are spread about as far as they go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the instrument and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains. Then you could pull out skull pieces. And you have a day like I had a lot of times, sometimes the little face comes back and stares back at you.
The last abortion that I had, I actually saw the baby come out. This one was the medical abortion.
Oh.
We go to this Planned Parenthood. A guy doctor comes in. He's like, here's the pill. Take the pill. And I'm so scared. So I'm looking at him. And he's like, come on. And the doctor's like, take the pill. And I'm looking at him. He's like, what are you waiting for? The doctor's like, the pill's right here. And I'm just like, so much pressure, gave in, put this dumb pill in my mouth. They give me the 4 pills to take home. I sit down on the couch. All of a sudden, I feel like this pain. And I go to the bathroom, and I literally delivered a baby. The baby was like this big. I saw the little tiny limbs, little arm, little everything. And the baby's heart was still beating. And it starts to go slower and slower and slower until the baby passes away. And after that, precious life was lost. I almost lost my own life because that abortion didn't go the way Planned Parenthood wanted it to be. They make you sign a waiver that if you happen to die, they are not held liable. I remember calling them and I'm like, I am bleeding uncontrollably. It's been months already. And they're like, it's fine. You're going to be bleeding. You're going to be bleeding. I'm like, something is wrong. The bed soaked in blood. And I started getting a fever and I go to the hospital. I had to pee in a cup and my urine was all like purple. And they did an emergency surgery. What happened was when I delivered the baby, the placenta and everything else stayed inside and it was rotting. And my uterus stayed open. So I had an infection. It was going through my bloodstream. The nurse said that had I not come in within those hours in that morning, she's like, you would have died.
President Trump, during that debate, talked about children that are aborted way in the 8th and 9th month, and then some even after, and mentioned that. To which the ABC News moderator, Lindsay Davis, responded, there is no state in the country where it's legal to kill a baby after it's born, and then immediately turned to Vice President Harris.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Where literally she jumped in to be able to debate the president and to try to quote unquote correct him. The problem is there was no one to be able to moderate her in that debate. And make the simple statement, there are not only states in America where that can happen, there are states in America where that does happen. In this simple map of the United States, this lists out the states where there are strong protections for a child after birth. Now, this is not an abortion. This is a botched abortion that has occurred. This is a woman went in with the intent of having an abortion, late term. The child was fully delivered. And in medical practice, in many of these states that are listed here, the child is fully delivered during the abortion. And if the child cries, breathes, the practice is to back away and to allow the child to slowly die on the table. Because the intent was an abortion. And so everyone just steps back in the facility and watches the child die on the table, however long that takes. Now, before people say that doesn't occur, 8 states have a requirement that in an abortion, if it's botched and the child's actually fully delivered and they're still alive, they have to report it. And in 8 states, only those 8 that actually do that, there were 277 cases of that. Let me give you an example. This was several years ago. She's now a beautiful young woman now. A young woman named Melissa Oden, she actually didn't know until she was an adult that she was actually the product of a botched abortion. Her mom had been compelled to have an abortion, was a teenager, had been compelled to have an abortion by some family members around her. She didn't want to do it, but she did. It was a late-term abortion. She went in to have the abortion, had the abortion, and after the abortion was over, one of the nurses, looking through the quote-unquote medical waste that was there on the table, saw the young girl crying. She scooped up the infant, took the infant on her own to an emergency room. The emergency room said, there's no way she'll have a full, meaningful life. But they took care of her because she's in the emergency room. And I know Melissa Oden. She's a remarkable lady.
I should have been delivered dead, and instead I was actually born alive. My 19-year-old birth mother, as a college student, had a saline infusion abortion, and that type of procedure was meant to poison me to death. Ultimately, a nurse rushed me off to the neonatal intensive care unit, where medical care ultimately sustained my life. that my birth mother had spent over 30 years of her life believing that I had died that day at the hospital. She was not told that I survived. It was kept a secret from her. I was placed for adoption without her ever knowing. She never knew if it was a little boy or a little girl she had delivered in that abortion. She had lived with such incredible regret and heartache. And so we started to communicate by email about 5 years ago and shared information, built walls of trust and love with one another before we met face to face for the first time about 2 years ago now. I will never forget meeting her and seeing her pain. Her pain haunted me for a very long time after that. But now I get to also experience her joy.
Odin, welcome. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Chairman and representatives. 327,653. This is the number of abortions that Planned Parenthood's 2014 fiscal report lists as being completed that year. Based on these numbers, 897 children will lose their lives to an abortion completed by Planned Parenthood each and every day. Why do I find this horrific? Because I actually have a lot in common with them. I was meant to be one of them. I should have been just another statistic, but by the grace of God, I am more than a statistic. I come here to you today as a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a master's level prepared social worker, and yes, as an abortion survivor. From a botched abortion to the dreaded complication, a child who lives, I've been called just about everything that you can imagine. But if you want to turn your attention up to the screen, as you can see in my medical records from 1977, kind of right there in the middle, saline infusion for an abortion was done, but was unsuccessful. And in other times throughout my medical records, you will read statements like, the complication of my birth mother's pregnancy was a saline infusion abortion. You could certainly say that saline infusion complicated the pregnancy. It has taken years to unravel the secrets surrounding my survival, to have contact with my biological family, and even medical professionals that cared for me. And although there are still unanswered questions, what I do know is that my life was intended to be ended by that abortion. And even after I survived, my life was in jeopardy. You wouldn't know it by looking at me today, but in August of 1977, I also survived a saline infusion abortion. And as Gianna shared, that saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding the preborn child. The intent of that toxic salt solution is to scald the child to death from the outside in. For days, I soaked in that toxic salt solution, and on the 5th day of the procedure, my biological mother, who was a 19-year-old college student, delivered me after her labor was induced. I should have been delivered dead that day, as a successful abortion. In 2013, I learned through contact with my biological mother's family that not only was this abortion forced upon her against her will at the age of 19, but also that it was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, a nurse, who delivered me in this final step of the abortion procedure at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa. Unfortunately, I also learned that when my grandmother realized that the abortion had not succeeded in ending my life, she demanded that I be left to die. I may never know how exactly 2 nurses who were on staff that day found out about me, but what I do know is that their willingness to fight for medical care to be provided to me ultimately sustained my life. And I know where children like me were left to die at St. Luke's Hospital. I met a nurse there who delivered a child much like me in 1976. She delivered a little boy after a failed saline infusion abortion, but she followed her superior's orders, and she placed him there in a utility closet in a bucket of formaldehyde to be picked up later as medical waste after he was left there to die alone. A bucket of formaldehyde in a utility closet was meant to be my fate after I survived that abortion attempt. I weighed a little less than 3 pounds when I survived. I suffered from jaundice, severe respiratory problems, and seizures for an extended period of time. And one of the first notations in my medical records by a doctor after I survived is that I looked like I was about 31 weeks gestational age when I was delivered. Despite the miracle of my survival, the doctor's prognosis for my life was very poor initially. My adoptive parents were told that I would suffer from multiple disabilities throughout my life. Yet here I am today, perfectly healthy. Yet I know it isn't just how abortion ends the life of children like me that isn't talked about in today's world. It's also not discussed what happens to children like me who live. I can tell you we are your friend, your neighbor, your coworker, and you would likely never guess by passing us on the street that we survived what we did. In my work as the founder of the Abortion Survivors Network, I have had contact with 203 of these other survivors. Letters from some of those survivors have been submitted to this committee. I'm here today to share my story to not only highlight the horror of abortion taking place at Planned Parenthood, but to give a voice to other survivors like me, and most importantly, to give a name, a face, and a voice to the hundreds of thousands of children who will have their lives ended by Planned Parenthood this year alone. As you consider the horrors of what happens at Planned Parenthood each day, I would urge you to remember my story and Gianna's too. We may not have survived abortions at Planned Parenthood, but the expectation for our lives to be ended by abortion are the very same as those who do lose their lives there. And I have long believed that if my birth mother's abortion would have taken place at a Planned Parenthood, I would not be here today. Completing over 300,000 abortions a year provides them with the experience to make sure that failures like me don't exist. As a fellow American and as a fellow human being, I deserve the same right to life, the same equal protection under the law as each and every one of you. Yet we live in a time where not only do such protections not exist, but my own tax dollars and yours go to fund an organization that has perfected the very thing that was meant to end my life. And this must end.
Nuka-Tola's tone. But a markedly more clinical tone is used in a lawsuit brought by the Center for Reproductive Rights, a leading abortion advocacy group, against a Kansas law prohibiting dismemberment abortions. In the suit, CRR states, quote, starting around 15 weeks LMP, physicians performing abortions may use forceps or other instruments to remove the products of conception from the uterus, often in combination with suction. Usually, disarticulation of the fetus occurs as the physician brings fetal parts through the cervix. This procedure is known as dilation and evacuation, or D&E procedure. As someone who has survived an abortion, can you please tell us how these two descriptions of an abortion procedure make you feel?
My face. You can probably just see my face. It's horrifying to me, absolutely horrifying to hear such things, but I also will never, ever forget, for as long as I live, watching Dr. Nuka-Tola eat a salad and drink wine, discussing so casually the dismemberment of children, and that is it. I will never, ever forget that. I find it absolutely appalling that we are even having to conduct such a hearing in the United States of America. I hope that sufficiently answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Mr. Bob, several years ago, there was a news story that came out of Florida about an abortion survivor who was not rescued. Instead, according to World Magazine, the child was born alive in a toilet while the mother sought anxiously for someone at the abortion clinic to help her baby, but no one would help and the baby died. Mr. Bob, are you aware of other evidence that some abortion survivors are not rescued?
Yes, and the example that you gave was one of those from Hialeah, Florida in 2006, when a live-born infant was born in an abortion clinic, and what happened to the live-born infant was the baby was put in a medical waste bag to die, rather than providing any care or treatment. There have been a number of criminal and other actions taken in that instance. but the people involved at the clinic were not charged, however, with the specific death of the child that they clearly caused. There's been other instances in the Kermit Gosnell case when, of course, he was killing born infants or partially born infants using scissors and by thrusting them into the back of the neck of the child. You don't do that if the baby's dead. You only do that if the baby's alive. And of course, we don't know for sure whether that was while the baby was still in the womb partially or was in fact outside of the womb.
Thank you, Mr. Bopp. Ms. Smith, in the precursor to the Gonzalez case, the case of Stenberg versus Carhart, Justice Kennedy dissented from the decision to strike down the partial birth abortion ban, which was later upheld in the Gonzalez case in a different ban.
A different version, yeah.
That's right. He described at length the testimony provided by abortionist Leroy Carhart about the alternate D&E method or dismemberment procedure. The fetus can be alive at the beginning of the dismemberment process and can survive for a time while its limbs are being torn off. Dr. Carhart agreed that when you pull out a piece of the fetus, let's say an arm or a leg, and remove that, at the time just prior to removal of the portion of the fetus is alive. Dr. Carhart also has observed fetal heartbeat via ultrasound with extensive parts of the fetus removed, and testified that mere dismemberment of a limb does not always cause death because he knows a physician who removed the arm of a fetus only to have the fetus go on to be born as a living child with one arm. At the conclusion of a D&E abortion, no intact fetus remains. In Dr. Carhart's words, the abortionist is left with a tray full of pieces. Justice Kennedy said, the fetus, in many cases, dies just as a human adult or child would. It bleeds to death as it is torn from limb from limb. Ms. Smith, do you believe this practice represents a humane way to die?
Let me separate, which I think is something that's getting confused here in this hearing again and again, which is procedures performed on pre-viable fetuses and procedures that are performed on viable fetuses. Both of the women here on this panel are here today because they were viable at the time the procedures were performed. What you're talking about is pre-viability procedures performed on a fetus that cannot survive outside.
Maybe not. Justice Kennedy was talking about a child that was born alive with only one arm because the other had been pulled off already in the abortion procedure. My question to you is, are you going to answer it? Is this a humane way to die?
I believe for a fetus, pre-viable fetus, yes, a D&E procedure is a very humane procedure, and it protects the woman and her health and safety more than any other procedure. And in fact, it was substituted
Ms. Smith,
for the
I'm going to
saline
reclaim my time and just say that I have to say that your view of humanity and mine are different.
I think,
and I will ask Ms. Justin and Mr. Bopp and Ms. Oden very quickly if you support, because you've already answered this question, if you support the Pain-Capable Abortion Act that has passed the House of Representatives and is awaiting action in the United States Senate. Mr. Bopp?
Yes, it is necessary for a number of reasons and pertinent to this.
It would prevent many of the instances I just described to the three of you, would it not?
It would, and could also prevent some of the instances, because we don't know for sure the gestational length of the child in some of the instances in the videos, but it could have also prevent some of them.
Correct. Ms. Jessen?
I'm speechless with Ms. Smith's reply that she thinks that's a humane way to die. I support.
Ms. Oden?
Yes, I too support the Pain Capable Act, and I want to make it clear, though, I want abortion to be unthinkable in our country. I want us to not even have to have a conversation about another act.
Thank you. I agree.
There is evidence that a child may have been murdered in an intact dilation and evacuation procedure.
In a partial birth abortion, the abortionist pulls a living baby feet first out of the womb and into the birth canal. as you can see right here, except for the head, which the abortionist purposely keeps lodged just inside the cervix. The abortionist punctures the base of the baby's skull with a surgical instrument, like a long surgical scissor, or a pointed hollow metal tube called a trocar. Then he inserts the catheter into the wound and removes the baby's brain with a powerful suction machine. This causes the skull to collapse, after which the abortionist completes the delivery of the now dead baby.
Baby is moving, baby is alive, baby is intact up to this point. But if the baby then delivers, it's then considered a live birth, and the baby would have to go to the nursery. But before that's allowed to happen, this is when the abortion would actually kill the baby.
This horrific practice was common in the United States, but it was finally outlawed in 2003.
I'm pleased that all of you have joined us as the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act of 2003 becomes the law of the land.
Although partial birth abortion is illegal, little is done to ensure it isn't happening. And recently, strong evidence was discovered that a child could have been killed through partial birth abortion. A group called PAAU, Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, exposed this evidence. They saw a medical waste truck parked outside Washington Surgery Clinic abortion facility and were given a box of medical waste. They discovered the bodies of 5 babies who could have been aborted illegally. One baby girl in particular displays strong evidence of partial birth abortion.
She has several lacerations on the back of the skull. One is in the occipital region back here. As you can see, the skull is totally broken.
However, authorities are declining to investigate the deaths of these children. If a 1-month-old were discarded like this, there would certainly be an investigation. But because these babies were treated like trash, there is no investigation.
And that's why these activists and Live Action and others are calling on DC police to investigate, because these children could have been born outside the womb, could have survived outside the womb. There may be federal laws that were violated here, laws that prohibit partial birth abortion, laws that prohibit leaving a born alive infant to die.
And the abortionists know they are killing children. Partial birth abortions, like all abortions, intentionally kill innocent human children. They are devastating. Intentionally killing a baby is an atrocity, whether inside the womb or outside the womb.
Rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Any woman who becomes pregnant, okay, even if that woman suffers a miscarriage, even if that woman tragically makes the wrong choice and gets rid of the life within her through an abortion, or if the baby comes to full term, cells are exchanged between the mother and the child, living cells, so that after either a miscarriage, tragically, sadly, an abortion, or birth, those cells will remain in your body, ladies, for the rest of your life. You have, and if you didn't know it, you're probably going to start crying. You have living cells of all your children in your body right now. Scientists discovered that when a woman becomes sick, who has been a mother, they noticed certain clusters of cells from her body going to the ill area in her body. Whatever it was, whatever area, there would be a cluster of cells that would go to this area and would be seeking to make her well, to fight off whether it was the disease, whether it was a sickness, whatever it was. And guess what cells those were? The cells of your children. See, maternity has its blessings.
We're going to call the abortion facility and I'm going to tell them I'm pregnant with a 32-week fetus, as you say. Hi, I just turned 32 weeks pregnant. Am I able to come in for an abortion ASAP?
I wouldn't be able to see for the week of the 23rd, so that would put you at 34 weeks.
Can I still have an abortion at 34 weeks?
Yes, ma'am. I just have to do an intake form. Do you have about 5 minutes?
Sure, I have 5 minutes. Yeah, I just found out that she could have Down syndrome. I can still have the abortion, right, even though she has Down syndrome?
Yeah, so we just have to do an intake because the doctor...
It doesn't matter. That's late-term abortion, ma'am. That's abortion in the 8th month of pregnancy that's discriminatory based on someone's genetic code. She just confirmed she would commit an abortion on me with my child who's viable and can live outside the womb.
I'm looking to have an abortion.
How far along are you?
I'm 34 right now.
An abortion at any stage is actually much safer than delivering a term pregnancy. It's a 4 to 5 day procedure. The needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart where lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus so there's no pain. And then after that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL into the fetal heart, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. And then we'll assist you in sort of pushing in the induction and then remove all of the products of conception. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time?
All the time.
Rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
No, I'm talking about your bill. How late in the 3rd trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
So, through the 3rd trimester. The 3rd trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay, but to the end of the 3rd trimester?
Yep, I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating. I'm asking if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
I rise today in strong support of H.R. 26, the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And this bill does exactly what the title says, which in this town is a novel concept. Today, we are not talking about abortion. We are talking about children. We are talking about children who have been born and are fighting to survive despite an abortion attempt. In some cases, when a woman receives a late-term abortion, the baby can be born alive following the procedure. Federal law currently recognizes these babies as persons, but fails to outline any requirements of care after the infant is born alive. H.R. 26 would rectify this by requiring healthcare practitioners to treat any child born alive after an abortion as they would any infant, and requires that the infant be immediately treated with life-saving care and transported to a hospital. I honestly do not understand what is so controversial about that. This bill establishes criminal penalties for any healthcare practitioner or abortion clinic employee who fails to comply with the requirements established by this bill, because let's face it, no one can deny that a child who survives an abortion attempt, who is outside the womb, breathing and struggling for life despite all attempts to end it, doesn't deserve equal protection under the law. And under our law, murder is illegal.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
8 babies in Florida alone. Just last year, 8 babies were reported to have been born alive during an abortion attempt. The stories are horrific. One that sticks out in particular, an NBC report in 2006. They told the story of a 23-week-old baby boy that was born alive at an abortion clinic in Hialeah, Florida. When he began breathing and moving, the abortion clinic owner, Belkis Gonzalez, reportedly cut the umbilical cord and zipped him into a biohazard bag, where he then died.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
One night, a nursing coworker was taking a little abortion survivor to the soiled utility room to die because she didn't have time to hold him and his parents didn't want anything to do with him. And so when she told me what she was doing, I couldn't let this baby die alone, and so I cradled and rocked him for the 45 minutes that he lived. He was about the size of my hand, and if you saw the State of the Union address with a little Ellie, a 2-year-old who'd been born at 21 weeks, 6 days, the baby I held was just 2 days younger than her. I couldn't tell toward the end of his life if he was still alive unless I held him up against the light to see if I could see his heart beating through his chest wall, because their skin is so thin at that age. And after he was pronounced dead, I folded his little arms across his chest, tied them together with a little string, wrapped him in a shroud, and took him to the morgue where we took all of our dead patients.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Abortion can never on its face be safe, because in order for an abortion to be deemed successful, an individual and unique human being with a beating heart must die. That can never be safe for that individual human life. I want to talk specifically about what a first trimester abortion is and what it looks like from a person who ran a Planned Parenthood abortion facility and was there for 8 years. First trimester abortions are by and large the most common abortion procedure we see in the United States. A transvaginal ultrasound is standard procedure inside of every National Abortion Federation clinic, which includes every Planned Parenthood clinic. That transvaginal ultrasound is done for primarily one reason: to determine how far along the woman is in her pregnancy so that we knew how much to charge her for the abortion. After the ultrasound is performed, the ultrasound machine is rolled away. The doctor comes in, who, by the way, has no conversation with the woman before the abortion. The fact that many people say abortion should be a decision made between a woman and her doctor is laughable. There is never a time where the abortion doctor goes in, sits down with the woman, and goes over risk, alternatives, and benefits to abortion. It does not happen. The doctor starts performing the abortion. He's going to insert into the woman's uterus, into the cervix, metal dilation rods, graduated metal dilation rods. He's going to dilate the cervix enough so that he can insert something called a suction cannula. That cannula looks like a straw. It is graduated. It gets bigger depending on how big the baby is in the womb, so that the head will be able to fit through that suction cannula. He's going to insert that suction probe inside of the woman's uterus. Ultrasound guidance is not used. That is not the standard protocol inside of National Abortion Federation or Planned Parenthood clinics. He's going to take that probe and he's going to blindly poke around inside the woman's uterus until he thinks he has enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. That glass jar is going to go into a lab called the POC lab. POC in the medical community stands for products of conception. The products of conception is, of course, the baby. But you can't say baby inside of the abortion clinic. So we said POC or POC, or if the staff was feeling funny, they would say that it stood for parts of children. After all the parts were accounted for, the POC lab technician would dump everything out into a glass baking dish that sat on top of an X-ray light box, and she would reassemble the parts of the baby. Please understand me, I'm talking about first trimester abortion. Yes, there are parts. Yes, they must be reassembled. The baby is fully formed. Every internal organ is formed by 12 weeks gestation. So yes, there are parts, even earlier than 12 weeks. Once all of the parts are reassembled, that POC tech will take everything, dump it into a red biohazard Ziploc sort of bag, And those bags will go into a freezer in the POC lab that the staff jokingly called the nursery. And once a week, a company, a biohazard medical waste company like Stericycle, will come into the facility and they will pick up all the red bags of babies where they are taken to their facility to be incinerated. That's if the abortion facility decides they don't want to just put them in their industrial size garbage disposal and grind them up and put them into the water waste treatment facilities.
My name is Dr. Anthony Levatino. I'm a practicing obstetrician gynecologist, and I've performed over 1,200 abortions. Today I'm going to describe a third trimester induced abortion, which is performed at 25 weeks to term. At this point, the baby is almost fully developed and viable, meaning he or she could survive outside the womb if the mother were to go into labor prematurely. Because the baby is so large and developed, this procedure takes 3 or 4 days to complete. On day 1, the abortionist uses a large needle to inject a drug called digoxin. Digoxin is generally used to treat heart problems, but a high enough dosage of digoxin will cause fatal cardiac arrest. The abortionist inserts the needle with the digoxin through the woman's abdomen or through her vagina and into the baby, targeting either the head, torso, or heart. The baby will feel it. Babies at this stage feel pain. When the needle pierces the baby's body and the digoxin takes effect, the life of the baby will end. The abortionist then inserts multiple sticks of seaweed called laminaria into the woman's cervix. They will slowly open up the cervix for delivery of a stillborn baby. While the woman waits for the laminaria to dilate her cervix, she carries her dead baby inside of her for 2 to 3 days. On day 2, the abortionist replaces the laminaria and may perform a second ultrasound to ensure the baby is dead. If the child is still alive, he administers another lethal dose of digoxin. The woman then goes back to where she is staying while her cervix continues to dilate. If she goes into labor and is unable to make it to the clinic in time, she will give birth at home or in a hotel. In this case, she may be advised to deliver her baby into a bathroom toilet. The abortionist then comes to remove the baby and clean up. If she can make it to the clinic, she will do so during her severest contractions and deliver her dead son or daughter. If the baby does not come out whole, then the procedure becomes a D&E, a dilation and evacuation, and the abortionist uses clamps and forceps to dismember the baby, piece by piece. Once the placenta and all the body parts have been removed, the abortion is complete. Late-term abortions have a high risk of hemorrhage, lacerations, and uterine perforations, as well as a risk of maternal death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions. One day, after completing one of those abortions, I looked at the remains of a preborn child whose life I had ended, and all I could see was someone's son or daughter. I came to realize that killing a baby at any stage of pregnancy for any reason is wrong. I want you to know today, no matter where you're at or what you've done, you can change. Make a decision today to protect the preborn. Thank you for your time.
Rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Professor Myers, you are here at the invitation of my Democratic colleagues, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. In his opening statement, my good friend Senator Whitehouse said, I want to quote, "Reproductive justice is economic justice," close quote. Do you agree with that?
I might, as an economist, use the word rights, but yeah, I do agree with that.
Okay. That's not true for the baby, is it?
Well, first of all, I would refer to a fetus, not
Yeah,
a baby.
but that's, well, a fetus. I refer to it as a baby. That's not true for the baby, is it?
The evidence that I presented to you, Senator Kennedy, was evidence about measurable effects on the lives of women, families.
Right, I got that part, but that's not true for the baby, is it?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand.
Well, it's
your
not
question.
true. Let me be clear.
Let me
I'm
back
sorry.
up. As an economist, I measure effects using data. I'm not here to talk about ethics, assignment of personhood. That's not my
Well, but you
role.
said you agreed with the chairman's statement that reproductive justice is economic justice. There is no economic justice for the baby because the baby's dead, right?
I wouldn't refer. I don't really know how to answer your question. I would refer to
Was
a
the baby
fetus.
dead or alive?
We're referring to a fetus.
Okay, is the fetus dead or alive after an abortion?
The fetus would be dead after an abortion.
All right. If the mother is healthy and the baby is healthy, do you support abortion up to the moment of birth?
So I think that's a really hard question to answer because that just doesn't happen. You're asking me about something that simply doesn't happen.
Well, it's legal.
I will tell you
it's legal. It's legal in Vermont, New Jersey, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Alaska, and the District of Columbia, and the Loon wing of the Democratic Party supports abortion up to the moment of birth. So, do you support that or oppose it?
I don't think. Let me say, I'm here to talk about the economics of abortion.
No, you're here as an expert.
And I think you're asking me a
believe.
question as a person, which I'll answer as a person.
Okay, tell me as a person.
I will tell you as a person that I have ambivalence about abortion. I will tell you as a person, I haven't personally had an abortion. And I will also tell you as a person looking at the evidence around me and understanding how complex the decisions are that people face.
Okay.
I'm just simply uncomfortable
I got to move on,
thinking that there's a
Professor, 'cause
simple
I don't think
answer
you're
that
going to
applies
answer
to
my
everyone.
question.
I trust women and their healthcare providers.
It's real simple. You either support abortion for a healthy mother and baby up to the moment of birth or you don't. And I don't think it's a difficult question. How about you, doctor? Do you support, if the mother is healthy and the baby's healthy, do you support abortion up to the moment of birth?
So, Senator, you're using really inflammatory language to talk about a medical procedure, and it's not a simple yes or no. Not to mention, when you make statements like that, you're erasing the grief and the trauma that my patients
You're not
are
going to answer my
through.
question either, are you?
It's not a question that
I
can
think
be answered
I think I
in
know
an
your
appropriate
answer.
way,
I think
Senator.
I know your answer. Mrs. Ford, okay? Let's take a baby at 21 weeks. Hold up, Mike. This is a baby at 21 weeks, okay? The baby can feel pain, right?
Yes.
And the baby's pretty developed, right?
Yes.
And do you know the name of the procedure that the doctor would use to abort that baby at 21 weeks?
I'm not a doctor, but I believe it's a DNR.
It's called dilation and evacuation. Is that right?
As far as I understand,
Yeah. And first, the doctor would dilate the cervix, and then the doctor would take what's called the doctor would call it a Sofer clamp. It's really a pair of pliers with sharp teeth on the end. And without giving the baby any pain medication, the doctor would go through the vagina, through the uterus, and start tearing the baby apart. Is that right?
as far as I understand the procedure.
Yeah, and she might start with the legs and pull them out, and the arms and pull them out, right? And then she might go for the heart or the spine and just pull the baby out piece by piece. Is that right? Without giving the baby pain medication.
That's what I understand the procedure to be.
Okay, but then you got to get the head out. The baby's dead, but maybe not. Maybe it's still in pain, but then you got to get the head out. And even with the cervix dilated, you got to get the head out, which is hard. So then the doctor would go in and use those pliers to crush the baby's head. Is that right?
As far as I understand.
And then she'd pull the head out, the crushed skull out, right?
Senator Kennedy, your time has expired here.
Well, you gave
Senator
the others
waiting.
plenty of time, Mr. Chairman.
Just letting you know, your time's expired.
Okay.
Your other senators waiting.
Well, I was waiting when you were letting others. I'm sorry you don't want to hear about what happens.
No, I don't think anybody
in
else
an
is
actual
going,
abortion, but I thought that was what we were here to talk about.
No one else has gone over. Some of the witnesses went a little bit long, but on both sides. So
I thought we were here about protecting mothers and killing babies.
I'm going to turn to Senator Stabenow and Mr.
I'm sorry
Phillips.
you don't want to hear
that
it.
this had to
Like
take
we've
place
got
in
a
front of
whole
you.
roster here.
My apologies.
I know it's ugly, but it's
Thank
true.
you, Mr. Chairman.
While there is still much to be done in the pro-life movement, there is also a lot of good worth highlighting. On each episode, we're going to spotlight a person, a group, or a movement building up the culture of life. This first installment of our pro-life focus is powerful. So often, when pro-lifers talk about ending abortion, we say we need to be a voice for the voiceless. That, however, does not apply in this case. Today, we introduce you to a woman who survived an abortion attempt and is speaking for herself in a bold way. Weighing less than 3 pounds, Melissa Oden was born beating the odds. She is a survivor of a failed saline infusion abortion.
God did have a plan.
It's a procedure that injects a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding a preborn child. Cared for by NICU nurses at first, baby Melissa was soon adopted into a loving home. Now, Oden is a wife and mother, a Catholic convert, and a pro-life advocate, with speeches spanning from pregnancy centers to Capitol Hill.
I'm here today to share my story to not only highlight the horror of abortion taking place at Planned Parenthood, but to give a voice to other survivors like me.
It's a journey detailed in her new memoir, You Carried Me, released this month. Melissa recounts a series of tough truths, including when she, as a teenager, learned about the abortion attempt on her life.
To be 14 years old, it absolutely devastated my life. And I think like so many young people, right, I didn't want anybody else to know how much I was hurting.
So Melissa turned to what she calls her unholy trinity of coping mechanisms: bulimia, alcohol, and sex.
People often ask me, how did you ever come out of that? And I always say it really wasn't me. It wasn't. It was the grace of God that saved me. And I had to be willing to wake up and every day say, you know what, I'm not going to do that today, right?
The focus of the memoir continues onto Melissa's search for her birth mother as she wonders whose blood runs through my veins. She discovers her birth mother was a 19-year-old college student pressured to get an abortion. She thought Melissa had been dead for over 30 years. Oden's perspective throughout the journey is strikingly compassionate. Tell us how you came to have that approach.
It's a response that I think has deepened over time. I've always loved her, but my love for her deepens year after year. And not just because the circumstances of her life and mine are now different, right? I know the truth about how she was forced into that abortion. But I think the older I get, the more I learn how to love people and to respect them for who they are. And I think motherhood has been a bond that she and I can really connect on that level. And so it's a love story, right? It's a love story that God wrote and man attempted to rewrite that whole story. And God's story wins in the end.
Now you had finished this book, you had finished your memoir, you were done, and then something happened. And then you met your birth mother for the first time. Tell us about that.
Whew. That's where I have to take a deep breath. After everything I've gone through in my life and my healing from it, my tears are not tears of pain, my tears are just tears of incredible gratitude, right? I was not expecting to meet her in the course of the last few months. We have spent years getting to know one another, build trust, uncover secrets together. And so we met face to face for this first time early this summer. And I guess the short version of that would be it was everything I ever could have expected and more. To know that she spent over 30 years of her life believing that I had died at the hospital. How she suffered from immense regret and guilt. And then to have the opportunity to know that her child is alive and loves her and has forgiven her, and then get to meet face to face. Yeah, my excitement was for her probably more than me. But it was life-changing. I will never forget the moment that I saw her and we got to embrace. And I think the words that came out of my mouth was, "It's been a long time."
Ultimately, I'm more towards my body, my choice.
Everybody has a choice. I think if it's what you need to do, then do it.
It's the woman's right to choose.
Be the choice of the woman. I do believe in women's rights. I think that women should have the right to choose whether or not they want to abort their children.
Certain circumstances, make you have to do that.
Until childbirth.
I believe all the way up until birth.
About 8 months to ask, 8 months to know.
Probably the first 6 months.
Especially for abortion if a woman's been raped or either it's just incest or something like that. I think that they should have the right to make decisions about their body, their own body. Absolutely, yes.
Here's the video I'd love your thoughts on.
You don't want to see this.
That's pretty horrific. I didn't think they did it like that.
I didn't know any of that.
I never saw a video like that about how the procedure was performed. I don't agree with that.
I don't think it's right that the baby has to go through all that because someone didn't want them.
It changed my mind about the time frame there.
Do you consider yourself strongly pro-life now?
Yes. Now that they're watching that video, my opinion changed 100%. I always kind of thought it was just like a little seed that they kind of scope out.
Say that your original stance on abortion has changed?
Yeah. Yes, after seeing that video, 100%. I will be against abortion, for sure, 100%.
That stage, I didn't know the child was fully developed, so that's definitely not a good stage to have an abortion.
Yeah, but the baby is always alive after conception, and that's why abortion does kill an innocent human being.
Well, after seeing that video, yeah.
You went from thinking abortion should be available till birth to maybe being banned at month 3.
I mean, to be completely blunt, I was kind of thrown for a loop.
Say the video changed your mind about abortion?
Yes, it did.
I'm sorry, all right?
I'm fine. My mom went through 5 abortions before she decided to keep me.
That's crazy, pulling off the limbs and stuff. Because my sister just had a baby.
Everybody was forcing her to have an abortion and she held her ground. And now, of course, everybody loves the baby. She had the baby.
It could have been me, you, him, anybody else walking around through here.
It's not like a designer handbag. Oh, maybe I'll keep it or not. It's a life.
Now I'm going to educate my friends and whoever's asking about abortion.
Every life deserves a life.
Life is more important. You never know what that child may become.
And don't just kind of take a life that hasn't got the chance to develop yet. I hope you guys watch the video if it's linked or anything.
And the video helped change your minds all about abortion?
100%.
Text me or whatever a link to that video. I'm a high school principal.
That's a life, and they're destroying, and they haven't even got a chance the baby to see what's life all about. They have no choice.
What are your thoughts about abortion?
I think that the women should have the right to choose what they do with their bodies, and anything beyond that is it's restricting. It's oppressive to have someone think that they can dictate what everyone or what a species or a woman can do in a certain situation. Like if someone's gets raped and they end up pregnant, they should have the right to terminate that pregnancy because it wasn't voluntary. So to take away those types of rights and to overlook those type of situations, it's like, what kind of world are we living in?
I have to second that 110%. I think as women, we shouldn't be having any sort of person tell us what we cannot do with our own bodies, because it is our bodies.
And would you support any restrictions on abortion, let's say first, second, or third trimester?
That makes sense. If a person decides after a certain amount of time that they want to have an abortion, and if the fetus is alive and kicking and breathing and moving, then there should be limits on that. Yeah, definitely.
I would say that there definitely has to be a time frame when it would be okay. I'm not as knowledgeable as to where, what's it called?
I think it's
when their fingers and everything like that start forming. But I think the earliest indication of when someone is pregnant, I think that should, and when they decide that they're not ready, that should be the time frame of when they should do it. I don't think that they should do it like 6 months down the line or anything like that, because there are premature babies that are born and can live a full life from that time frame. So I don't think that's fair.
In one word, can you describe your thoughts on what you saw?
Disturbing.
Shocking.
Now, can you elaborate?
It's just like, I have a kid, so watching that, like, even though it was animated, it's just the idea of it, like, it makes, like, I already knew, it made me uncomfortable, like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess to elaborate on it, we all have life, and just to see that being done to a form of life or potential life is disturbing. So it is a little shocking and barbaric. Yeah.
Barbaric. Like, yeah. If you don't want to keep the child, follow through with the pregnancy and let the child live. Or adoption is an option. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's a tough subject though. It's tough.
And you mentioned that you also are a mom, like you mentioned while you're watching the video.
I had a choice, and I chose life. I have a kid, but I mean, people who aren't ready, I mean, you're never ready. You're not. I don't think that's what procreation is about, being ready. I think it's about creating a journey. So, I mean, whatever excuses there are, there's always another way. So
I think people should be given a choice to do what they want to do, but at the same time, it's not necessarily the choice I would make. That's why I haven't put myself in that position, but I'm also not in a place of judgment either.
Did you guys learn anything that you didn't know before about abortion?
All those tools that you stick in this stuff. Yeah, no, that's about it.
Well, what I said earlier was something about I wasn't educated enough on the fingers and when things like that are formed, but when they were pulling the baby out or the fetus out, suctioning out, it had its parts and stuff. So now seeing that, I do have a different, I think, opinion on how I would go about that. Something that I have to research further, definitely.
Do you think these videos should be shown to people, and if so, to whom?
This should be part of sex ed. That should be a definite subject that you teach adolescents going into adulthood. That's something that I didn't get when I was growing up. I didn't get that education on the consequences of becoming an adult and being sexually active. And if people start talking about it and getting the information out, it'll help with the situation that's going on now, because it starts here.
Definitely all age groups should be address this topic, because it's something that if you are sexually active, it's something that can happen and it's part of the consequences. So I think as much as like there are ads for commercials on condoms and birth control and things of that nature, I think there should also be some sort of way to communicate to the general public about this, just so it's something that isn't as uncommon to discuss. Because when you guys first approached me, there was that moment where I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that touchy subject, but it shouldn't be something that's touchy. And I'm happy that we did stop to talk, because now it let me think about things differently than from what I was thinking about just initially, even before this interview.
Would you consider yourself pro-life, pro-choice, or neither?
Pro-choice. Would you restrict it at any point?
No.
No. So all the way up until birth.
It's rough. Do you think now, watching this and from what you just said, do you still support abortions up to birth?
No. I don't think I support it, period.
I think the person should have a choice to have an abortion or not. Wow, it's brutal.
Does it change your mind at all?
It really did. Yeah. So, abortion shouldn't be legal.
It's your life, so it's your choice. And if you believe that that you don't want to have the baby, then it's your choice. So, I'm pro-choice, I guess. I didn't realize that the baby was, doing that kind of stuff at such an early stage.
Does this change your mind at all about abortion?
Yeah, I believe that's like murder right there. What I saw.
My opinion is that it should be part of the woman's right to choose whether or not to abort her baby.
One word, your thoughts on what you just saw.
Inhumane or heinous. Yeah. It does change my mind. Like, a lot of people just say, oh, abortion's okay, or it should be okay, but then I feel like a lot of us we're not really aware of what's the process of it and what's actually happening.
Would you consider yourself pro-life, pro-choice, or neither?
I would say pro-choice, definitely. I would consider myself. That was questionable. I didn't really realize. Yeah, that's how. A little more iffy for me. I don't know either way at the time. Okay. But definitely more controversial than my initial opinion.
If the women don't have the ability to be responsible for the child, it's maybe the best choice for her to do the abortion.
Kind of agree with her. I think it's people's freedom to choose whether they should have the children. I think it's so unhuman, and it's changed my mind about abortion.
Yeah, I changed my mind completely.
And what are your thoughts about abortion?
I'm definitely all for it if it's choice. That changes my views.
If I was pregnant, I would have to get an abortion. I don't know if it's changed my mind, but maybe it has. Because I don't think I would perform an abortion, honestly, watching these videos.
Do you support aborting the child if it was in a case of incest?
Yeah. I don't care what you're going through. Even if it's incest, don't abort the baby.
In the times that we live in, we gotta understand sometimes people have difficulty being able to raise children. I guess now my perception's changed a little bit. I sort of had this idea that first trimester everything's just kind of getting there, and second trimester baby's formed, but to see that a baby had already been formed early on is quite difficult to watch.
When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the choice, the blob of tissue, the fetus, no, the baby. The next question is, does abortion trump everything else in this country? Well, we've already seen what's in the womb. And the Bible knew this centuries ago. You knit me together in my mother's womb. But probably one of the clearest passages on this, it's not really talking about abortion, but it's telling you what's in the womb, is when Mary goes to visit Elizabeth. Who's Mary pregnant with? Jesus. Who's Elizabeth pregnant with? John the Baptist. They're cousins. And Mary goes and she visits Elizabeth. And look what happens. This is in Luke chapter 1. At that time, Mary got ready and hurried to a town in the hill country of Judea, where she entered Zachariah's home and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the choice, the blob of tissue, the fetus, no, the baby leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. Now, she's about 6 months pregnant at this point. The Bible is referring to John the Baptist in the womb as a baby. That's what's in the womb. And look, everybody knows this. Everybody already knows this. You have to be thoroughly propagandized to not know what's in a pregnant woman's womb. There's not a squirrel in there. Okay? There's not a blob of tissue. there's a baby in there.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and my question is, what does the Bible really say about abortion?
Thank you, Caleb, for your question about abortion. Welcome everyone to this program That's in the Bible. Let's begin first getting a common definition of abortion. We look at the dictionary and it says, well, it's a deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. You know, Caleb, in so many countries, abortion is seen, well, as a mother's choice, and it's most often legal, and it's considered to be a common method to ending the life of a growing child. But here's the thing. Should it really be considered as a viable method of birth control? And by the way, is it really a common practice? Before we turn to the pages of the Bible for some very important guidance as well as the laws of God about this topic, let's first see how common this practice really is and its place that it currently holds in popular culture. Let's take a look at this clip.
80% of the public is against an abortion in the third trimester, and almost 65% is against an abortion in the second trimester. So people are divided on this.
But I would hope that other people respect the very painful and difficult choice that many women feel they have to make and don't want the government telling them what they have to do.
So here you can see not only some basic statistics, but you can also notice how truly divided the public is on this issue. There's a lot of different viewpoints that people take regarding this topic. So, Caleb, let's state from the outset the stand of the Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ. We are truly against abortion as a birth control method. Why? Because it involves the taking away of human life. And God expressly prohibits us from taking another's life or committing murder. What does the Bible actually say about the ending of another's life? Let's begin taking a look at the Bible's stand regarding these topics. For example, we begin here in the book of Genesis, Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. If anyone takes a human life, that person's life will also be taken by human hands. For God made human beings in his own image. So Caleb, God's answer is very clear. What was his instruction? We are not allowed to take another human's life. And was God's instruction further reinforced or relayed by our Lord Jesus Christ to the church? Who, by the way, there's no denying that Jesus was the most compassionate of all, because that's what the one gentleman mentioned there, right? It's, have compassion. Jesus was the most compassionate of all. What about the compassion, they will say, what about the compassion to the mother's situation? Jesus, like I said, was the most compassionate of all people. Compassion being a common reason that, supporters of the legalization of abortion, they always reference that. Here's the most compassionate of all, Jesus himself answering that question. In Matthew 19:17 through 19, "Why ask me about what is good?" Jesus replied. "There is only one who is good. But to answer your question, if you want to receive eternal life, keep the commandments." "Which ones?" the man asked. And Jesus replied, "You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not testify falsely. Honor your father and mother. Love your neighbor as yourself." So here, Caleb, Jesus reiterated God's original instruction not to take the life of another human being. But some may argue that, a fetus is not yet a human being. And therefore, not yet under the umbrella of God's authority. And therefore, the mother, she has the right to choose then to end the existence of that unborn fetus. They would say that's not a human being yet. It's just a conglomeration of cells. That's why we find in society the well-accepted idea of pro-choice. And there's also, Caleb, some supporters of the pro-choice movement that are also anti-abortion, claiming that, well, a woman's access to abortion, albeit is a human right in cases of rape, cases of incest, or, for example, when their own life is in jeopardy. The stance of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, however, remains the same, even in these instances, regardless of the medical situation or the irreverent means or crime of the adults. God's act of creation still exists and should not be retaliated against by another crime in the eyes of God. But at what point has creation happened? That's really the fundamental question, isn't it? And it's at what point is the creation begun, and therefore that individual is under God's authority, and the prohibition against murder or taking the life of that human being is in effect. Isaiah the prophet writes a response to that question here, Isaiah 49, verse 5. And now the Lord speaks, the one who formed me in my mother's womb to be his servant, who commissioned me to bring Israel back to him. The Lord has honored me, and my God has given me strength. So clearly, Caleb, since the moment of formation in the womb of the mother, God has been involved. Abortion would thwart then the plan of God in creating that human being. Similarly, abortifacients or contraceptives that cause the unborn fetus to be expelled from the womb of the mother are not considered as a Christian family planning method. Whether they're legal or illegal, we cannot agree with such methods. Why not? Well, as we just read, God formed us right there in the womb of our mother. Removing such then is fighting against the plan and intent of God himself. So instead, the Church of Christ upholds birth control and family planning through artificial methods. This is in agreement with the commandment of God given in the Holy Scriptures that man subdue the earth. And what does God give as instructions or specifics about this? In Genesis chapter 1, the Bible says this, Then God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. And we all know the meaning of the word subdue. In fact, if we look in a thesaurus, some synonyms would be keep under control, moderate, repress, restrain, suppress, reduce. So God commanded man, yes, to fill the earth through procreation, and mankind has done that. And like I said, many would say the earth is already overpopulated. So in due time, God gave also the command to man to subdue the population or bring it under control. Thus, the use of contraceptives to bring the human population under control, it's not against the will of God. The kinds of artificial contraception, however, unless it's proven to be an abortifacient, inducing abortion, well, as long as it's not that, it can be agreed upon and used by couples after consulting, of course, with a medical expert to determine what is the applicability to their own medical condition or health. So, during these times of economic crisis, a large family, for example, with a relatively low income, well, they're going to find it hard to meet all their needs. Children, for example, could be deprived of proper food or nutrition and education. And such bad conditions would only contribute to the increase of social problems in society. Therefore, family planning with the use of artificial birth control methods is part of responsible parenthood. And those who do not provide for their households because of their own carelessness, what does the Bible call them? What does the Bible have to say about them? Let's consider in the writings of Apostle Paul, 1 Timothy 5:8. It says this: "But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." Caleb, it's therefore our faith that we and all people should adhere to the laws of God discussed here from the Holy Bible, so as to receive of His abundant grace in this life and in the life to come. Dear friends, Caleb, first of all, thank you so much for your question about abortion, and we hope that the Bible's answers will guide you in your own lives. Dear friends, there's no question that is too basic, no question that cannot be answered by the Bible when it comes to our lives, when it comes to our salvation. And if you'd like to know more about the basic fundamental teachings found inside the Church of Christ, if you'd like to see a directory there for a congregation that is very nearest to your own home, you will find it at incmedia.org. There you're going to also find a variety of programs, all dedicated to answering your spiritual questions. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again next time here on That's in the Bible.
So apparently anti-choice Christians don't know that in the Bible, God quite literally instructs abortions. So let's turn to the good book, shall we? I have two. So in Numbers chapter 5, God instructs that if a man suspects that his wife has been unfaithful, he is to take his wife to a priest. The priest is to bring his wife before God and give her a bitter water. It even tells you how they made the water. Now keep in mind that all of this is performed right in front of God and instructed by Him. You can pause to read, but down here, may this water that brings a curse enter your body so that your abdomen swells and your womb miscarries. If she has made herself impure and been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes a bitter suffering, it will enter her, her abdomen will swell, and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. If, however, the woman has not made herself impure, but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. That is a forced abortion. Don't you dare tell me I'm taking that out of context.
Numbers 5 has become the go-to passage to try to show that the Bible is actually pro-abortion, but it doesn't work for two reasons. First, while I appreciate her quoting from the Bible to make her case, there's actually a disagreement among Bible translators over how this text should be translated. Notice she has two Bibles, but she only read from one, the New International Version. I think I know why. You see, the majority of Bibles do not translate those verses that way. Virtually every other Bible translation, including the New Living Translation that she held up in the video, make no mention of a miscarriage. That's because most Bible translators think the thigh falling away or the womb shriveling is a more accurate rendering of the original Hebrew. They also think that expression is describing barrenness, not miscarriage. That's why if she's innocent, the text says she should be able to have children. By contrast, if she's guilty, she won't be able to have children. So this passage, in all likelihood, has to do with a curse of barrenness, not miscarriage. Second, even if the NIV translation is correct and God is inducing a miscarriage, this still wouldn't justify abortion. Here's why. This woman isn't exercising her right to choose. Instead, God is exercising His right to judge. This bitter water given by the priest isn't causing a miscarriage. These aren't God's instructions for abortion. After all, if she's innocent, the water does nothing. Rather, it's God who is taking that life. Look, God's the creator and sustainer of all life and has the right to take life at any time He wants. But just because God can take life doesn't mean we can. So, even if the NIV is right, it's still a judgment from God, not an abortion from man.
What are you here for today?
Physically, I'm just hungry here.
Okay. Why here of all places? I know you don't live nearby.
But this is an abortion centre.
Okay, that's what I understood. Is you standing here part of the protest?
No, I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions about today and other days where there are allegations that you've broken public spaces protection?
If I've got a choice, then no.
Okay, well then you're under arrest on suspicion of failing to comply with the Public Spaces Protection Order, which is under the Antisocial Behaviour Crimes BC Act 2014. Now, of course, you do not have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later on in court, anything you do say may be delivered. Do you understand the caution?
I do.
Hi everyone, you're very welcome back to Great Media. I'm your host, Maria Means. Isabel Vaughan-Spruce is the leader of the 40 Days for Life campaign in Birmingham in the UK. She was praying silently outside a closed abortion facility in Birmingham on the 4th of December. She wasn't blocking the entrance or doing anything obstructive, but admitted when approached by police that she may be praying silently in her head. When she admitted to this, police arrested her and charged Isabel with violating a public space protection order and committing, quote, antisocial behaviour. Isabel was last month cleared of all 4 charges against her. However, despite being vindicated, she was arrested again just this week for engaging in silent prayer and was told by police that praying near the abortion facility was an offence. Isabel Vaughan-Spruce joins us now. Isabel, it's great to have you with us. Would you be able to just give us a brief introduction, just a little bit about yourself? I know that you are prominent in the UK's pro-life movement. You're the co-chair of the March for Life UK over there. Would you just tell us a bit about yourself and this work that you've been involved in?
Sure, yeah. So as you said, I'm co-director of March for Life UK, but before I ever got involved in March for Life, I was praying outside abortion centres, and I've been doing that for probably around 20 years. So started off just joining a few other like-minded people who were praying outside an abortion centre nearest to me. And I ended up forming a 40 Days for Life group from that, probably about 10, 12 years ago in Birmingham in England. So I've been running that since then. Twice a year we hold 40 Days for Life campaigns. So that's something that I do, as well as obviously holding March for Life and the events associated with March for Life.
And what do you actually do when you go outside the abortion centres? Is it mainly, do you take the sort of focus of prayer, or would you be talking to women who are going in there to have abortions?
It's a really good question, and actually it's just so nice to be able to answer that, because so often people have a preconceived idea of what happens, and it's nice to be able to just share what really does happen. So with our campaign, we have people go in groups of 2 or 3, and they would stand near the abortion centre, just quietly saying their prayers, and they would have some leaflets of help that they would offer to anyone going into the abortion centre. Now, we personally don't have any posters at all. We never had any outside the abortion centre where we're praying. Obviously, I know some groups do. So we're just literally 2 or 3 people standing there quietly saying our prayers. And if a woman or a couple are going into the abortion centre, we would either say, you know, is there any help we can offer you, or would you like a leaflet? Sometimes a woman will just walk on by and not say anything, and then that's the end of the conversation. Sometimes they would say no, or turn down the offer. Again, that would be the end of the conversation. But there's a fair few women who would stop and say, you know, what help can you offer? Or you know, what's this about? And a conversation starts. And we've had many, many women who have decided to continue their pregnancy because we've been able to offer them a reasonable alternative, whereas before they maybe felt they didn't really have any options. I mean, I can think of well over 100 women who've accepted our help just over a period of a few years when we were counting. Obviously, I don't generally keep a tally chart, but we've had many women, many couples who have come back and shown us their babies, and you know, we're still part of their lives, which is an incredible blessing.
And I think it's interesting as well, because at a time where there's such a crackdown on pro-life people outside abortion centres and facilities, they're still determined to return and to go back and to do the work. So clearly there are, I mean, despite what a lot of people may think, there are fruits that you've seen from this.
Exactly, and this is why we feel it's so important to do it. We see those results. We see the changes that it can make in somebody's life. Women who really felt there was no other options open to them. And people who call themselves pro-choice surely should appreciate that there should at least be a choice available to these women. Many of the women that we were talking to were women who'd had their initial appointment, their consultation, or their so-called pre-abortion counselling, although they might not describe it like that. But they'd been into the abortion centre, hadn't felt that they were offered any reasonable alternatives there. Sometimes they'd even had the first set of abortion pills. But as I say, when they were shown that there was support available to them, they actually wanted their pregnancy. It wasn't the pregnancy, it wasn't the baby that they thought was the problem, but it was other issues going on in their life, maybe relationship difficulties, maybe financial difficulties, maybe accommodation problems which ultimately wouldn't be solved by the abortion. They'd still be going back to an abusive or a coercive relationship. They'd still be going back to the financial difficulties or the poor accommodation they were living in. But when we can get involved, we can actually help that, and they'd often be much better off than they were to start with, which, as I say, it's a privilege to be involved in people's lives like that. But it's just a shame that every woman isn't offered these alternatives.
Yeah, did you see that? So many people do not know that is what is involved. You saw some reaction on the street. They realize it's that horrible and they change their minds. Are you going to change your mind? You saw that. You saw what goes on. You saw what happens. What can I say? I can't add more because you have already seen. Now you tell me. You say you want rights, so you voted for Kamala, who lost, right? And you refused to vote for Trump. And even when Trump won, you still want to go and jump on the street to protest. What is your problem? You love killing, right? Because that's what it is. You want rights. What about the child in your womb? So God wants those who defend the voiceless. The child, the baby in the womb, doesn't have a voice. It needs someone who will stand for them. How about killing of the innocent? What do you think that scripture means? Exactly. The defenseless, the innocent, the voiceless ones. It's babies in the womb. They don't have a voice to say, I have a say, I got rights. You can't hear them. Defense, who can defend them? The only defender for the unborn, it should have been the mother. But it's the same mother that is so wicked to kill, to say it's my body, so I can do whatever I want. You see that? So let's just end right here. Think about it. And you need to change. In fact, you need to repent, in fact. So, what can I say? I'll just say goodbye and take care.